Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Southern California PGA Catalyst presented by PXG. Get your game ready and transformed with PXG. You'll experience exceptional quality and innovative technologies that produce real, measurable improvement on the golf course.
We are a fitting company.
Unlike anything else we go through, perfection. We approach everything with the idea that it's going to be fit.
Just maximum customization.
All I need you to tell me is, does it look the way I want it to? Does it feel good?
There's so much work that goes on behind the scenes. That's really where PXG stands out. Go farther, be more forgiving, and make it 100% right for you.
That's the experience we're all looking for.
It's just fun.
You need to go get fit for your golf club.
Once again, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series. We have Dr. Alison Curdt, Dr. Guillermo Escalante, and Ken Mangle joining us. The three of them have collaborated on a golf performance instruction, dietary, and kinesiology book. They're going to be taking us through that this morning. We're delighted for them to be joining us. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Curdt. Dr. Curdt, do you have controls?
I do not. Nothing's coming up yet.
Oh, no.
Let me see if this works. Can you see that now?
Yep.
It's coming. There it is.
There you go.
There we go.
All right. Great. Well, good morning, everybody. I'll sort of do a little introduction of the speakers and how this group came together. We're a little bit of a motley crew that found our way together through needing and seeking information. And as we go through our presentation this morning, we're going to be giving you some highlights of a book that we published at the end of September. And this is going to be a resource that your students can use, you as teachers can use, share information in your lessons, but also if you're a player, if you're someone who's looking to change your physiology, your nutrition, your psychology, this is a really great resource for you. I will share it. It's not an easy read. It's not going to be like, oh, I can whip through this in an evening. This is going to be like a textbook resource with a lot of case studies and examples for you. So you can jump in at any part of the book if you just want to go to nutrition, if you just want to go to the physical stuff or the psychology stuff, and you're going to reference back to it quite a bit. So we hope that this is something that's a valuable resource for you and your students. So a couple of years ago, I got into long distance running, and through that process, I knew nothing. Consider me like a 36 handicap. And I'm just trying to find resources online and trying to understand, like, what should I put in my body? How should I train for a marathon? What should my mileage be like? And is this going to impact my golf movement? And through that, I came up with some injuries. And so, of course, looking at our fabulous partners, we have over 100 partners in Southern California. Ken Mangle has been one long-standing partner. And so picking his brain, he helped me through understanding a little bit about my body, some IT band syndrome stuff. And then I said, I'd really like to work with a nutritionist. I really want to understand what I should fuel with and change my physique. And then that brought me to Dr. Guillermo Escalante. And I spent almost about a year working with Guillermo on understanding how to switch my mind for eating. So not dieting, but eating for fuel, eating for purpose, eating for competitions. And we sort of built this great friendship. So out of this entire project, I came up with two really great friends and then was approached to say, should we write a book together? Let's put all of our expertise together. And then here we are today presenting the Golf Performance Code. So that's a little bit of our background there. I'll have each of the speakers introduce themselves. I will go very short because most of you all know me, serving as your section president, a Golf Digest Top 50 coach, and a Golf Magazine Top 100 coach working out at Wood Ranch. Ken, would you go next with your introduction?
Ken Mingle, I've been physical therapy and sports medicine for over 30 years now. Golf specific focus from 2015 on, and started my partnership with the SCPGA in late 2015, the first full year of 2016. So we've been 10 years plus in working with the SCPGA in multiple functions, with the goal of kind of bringing that partnership of the physical training, the rehab recovery, the injury prevention side of things in with the team of the teacher instructor, and now extending open arms with the nutrition side. And Guillermo, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. I'm Dr. Guillermo Escalante, and I'm currently the Associate Dean for the College of Natural Sciences at California State University, San Bernardino. And actually, Ken and I go back, over 2 decades. He was
Yeah.
actually one of my mentors when I was going through my undergraduate degree program in athletic training, sports medicine. I was working at the clinic where he was working at, and so we've been longtime friends, and he was one of my mentors when I was growing up, per se. I still have that sports medicine, strength and conditioning background, but I also have developed another background, which was in sports nutrition and performance enhancement in that regard. I'm currently the vice president for the International Society of Sports Nutrition, and a lot of my research over the last 15 years or so has been specifically in the area of sports nutrition. Working with Allison was actually really fantastic, because over the years I've always worked with a variety of clients, but she was definitely my first PGA golf pro that I worked with, and we were able to put a hybrid together with not only the nutrition side for her physique changing goals, but also to fuel her performance for golf. And we came together with this idea, so I'm really happy to be here and share some nutrition nuggets with all of you.
Fantastic. So the book is laid out starting with the body and then moving into the nutrition side and finishing up with psychology. So we're going to go in that order, and beginning with Ken, we'll start with the history and the why of performance training.
Yeah, so the history and the why, and again, I think in order to appreciate why, we've got to kind of look back at the history of it. It isn't necessarily new, but it's new in its widely accepted capacity with regards to performance training. And again, when I talk about performance training, a big part of what I'm talking about as well is injury prevention, injury mitigation, because again, we're only as able as we are available. So back in the early 1900s, 1930s, Lieutenant Alex Stark of St. Andrews University wrote a physical training for golfers book, which he went over exercise. He also went over things that are so critical, such as proper dress code for golf and for success, and lifestyle things that would include, almost like the getting up and making your bed first thing in the morning, how to really set yourself up for success. But part of his book back in the 30s was looking at that physical end, and that recognizing that golf is a sport, and therefore we are athletes participating in it, and as such need to take care of ourselves in that way. A lot of the stigma with regards to exercise, and particularly weightlifting and weight training for golf, was the fear of being muscle bound. And muscle bound is kind of that term that you get so big that you can't get your arm across your chest, or lifting weights, that kind of misconception that lifting weights makes you stiff and tight. Whereas it's actually kind of the opposite. Lifting weights will actually take you through greater ranges of motion and improve your mobility, and allow you to move in ways that you wouldn't be moving were you not lifting weights. And kind of in Guillermo's other wheelhouses in the bodybuilding arena, you look at the poses that bodybuilders get into, and they are by no means muscle bound. Now, they may not be able to collapse their arm across their chest to a great degree, because their chest is so big and their deltoids and biceps are so big that the angle is different. However, their flexibility, mobility is tremendous. So getting over that fear of muscle bound has kind of taken us where we are today. Guys like Frank Stranahan, the Toledo strongman, used to travel with weights in his trunk so that he could train. Now, he also did strength competitions and things of that nature, but he believed that physical fitness was a big piece, and was actually kind of a mentor, an early on friend with a young Gary Player coming into golf. And we all know Gary, even to this day, is like the OG of golf fitness. Sit-ups, pull-ups, push-ups. This guy is a machine. and really laid that foundation for a Tiger Woods mainstreaming of our golf fitness today. We look at what can be done. Bryson DeChambeau is an example of what can be done. Alison's an example of what can be done on the body end of things, and taking that to a performance level. Now Bryson's had to kind of tone it back because he found that his lifestyle wasn't. It's hard to keep up with the dietary end and the caloric end of his lifestyle, so he had to really kind of train that back in a little bit. But he's still at about that 215 now instead of 230. He started off at 195, and we're seeing that again. Physical performance, physical training can enhance your performance. So the golfer is an athlete, and that's, I think, how we need to look at it. And we train our athletes, we train our golfers. So why is that reason? It's a driving purpose. It's our cause. It's our belief. Why do we teach certain things? Why do on the training side of things? Why do we do certain things with almost everybody? Why do we pick out and identify certain qualities with some people that, some people we do a lot of flexibility and mobility work with. Some people is more strength and stability work with. Some people is a combination of it. It all starts with getting a good assessment. It's the same thing with your, first time with a client and you're on the range or in the simulator or wherever it is that you're working from. That assessment on how that person moves is critical. If I don't know what is going on with somebody's body in terms of limitation in mobility, limitation in strength or endurance, maybe their balance is really an issue for them, I can set up a great program that wouldn't be great for that person. So getting a good quality assessment is key. And that's where I think, again, my big purpose and my big piece with working with the SCPGA and now illuminating it in this book is it's been about developing those partnerships, knowing who you can refer to, who I can refer people to make sure that they're going to get taken care of in a way that's going to optimize their abilities. So building that best athlete, we need to look at that. What is the foundation of an athlete? Foundation of an athlete is there's strength, there's speed, there's balance, there's endurance, there's power, there's coordination of movement. All of those pieces form an athlete, right? If you have somebody who's just extremely strong, they can move massive loads, but they don't have great flexibility or mobility to work with, they're going to have limitations in their athletic ability. On the opposite end of the spectrum, and we see this a lot with our junior athletes, people that have tremendous amounts of mobility, flexibility, they can turn and they can put themselves into all kinds of positions. They've got tremendous amount of range of motion, but they lack the strength to control themselves through that motion. They can get into positions they can't own. That's one of those pieces too, that their athleticism is not optimized. How do we optimize that athleticism as we get all those pieces into balance? How do we know what to balance? Is again going back to that assessment. So in golf, whether it's the casual golfer, whether it's the junior golfer that's competitive, whether it's the competitive golfer, the high school, college, professional level, we all have goals. We all have a tournament or two that we're seeking to perform well in. It could be a casual tournament. It could be a money tournament. But we've all got goals that we're kind of looking at. Some of our goals are longer term, that if it's me and I'm looking to shave strokes off my index, my goal may be by this time next year, I want to be at X, Y, or Z. For a competitive golfer, it may be that, hey, in March, I've got this tournament coming up that means something to me. Well, that's periodization. So you'll hear the term periodization and you'll see it in the book often. That allows me to take my training program from the assessment that I've done of that athlete and gear it towards March optimization. To gear it then towards my next big tournament is in May. Then I've got April, May that I'm going to really optimize my training to peak them at that level. Same thing in the teaching. We should be looking at how do we optimize our teaching to get them to that level. So teaching from my end, teaching from all the ends kind of goes towards that periodization. Periodization basically says, I've got a time frame. How do I optimize my performance to that time frame? And then mobility. Again, as somebody who's we're all getting older. Nobody's escaping the clock. We all feel that ability to move is critical. Flexibility is my ability to take you through a motion. Somebody raises my arm and stretches me or stretches my hamstring. Mobility is how do I do it to myself? How much strength and control do I have? And life happens in 3 planes, so I better be able to control my body not only in one movement at a time, but in 3 positions at a time and get myself back out of there. So golf is a sport for the lifetime, right? We all know that this is a sport for the ages from 5 years old to 95 years old. How do we gear up for a sport that's that long in its possible duration? And our hopeful duration of that is injury prevention versus performance enhancement. And I always tell people there really is not a difference between the two. If we can minimize your risk for injury, we have automatically improved your performance. Now I can get greedy and I can say, okay, now that we've got your baseline set to where your movement ability is high, your strength is high, your control is high, now we can really be greedy and say, now I'm going to go after that extra speed. Now I'm going to go after that extra bit of range of motion in my backswing, in my follow through, whatever it might be. I'm going to go after that ground force. But I need to lay that foundation to let the body have that capability first. So that's my prevention is always going to come first in my thought process, knowing that that's going to help my performance. The needs of a junior athlete versus a senior athlete, again, your assessment's going to show a lot of this, but what I find is that junior athlete, they need athleticism and they need strength and stability. Most junior athletes are very flexible. They've got the motion, they've got the ability to move. What we need is the control and the strength and the stability through there. As we get older, our tissue types change, and you can, again, it can be argued whether it's use it or lose it. I don't do as much with it, so my tissue type changes, and I don't have as much elastic collagen in my tissues anymore, but I've got more of a stiff, regular collagen in my tissue. I need to work on my mobility as I get older. So that mobility factor for the older golfer is really key, as well as what we see is physiologic changes that happen, right? As we get older, we know we are going to lose some muscle mass. It's harder to maintain it. We've got to work to maintain it. We can slow these progressions, but we can't necessarily stop them in our lifetime. But if we work to minimize those things, we can see those processes slowed. We can maintain muscle mass. If we can maintain muscle mass at a better clip, then we can maintain strength at a better clip. If we can maintain that strength and we're working on speed and power, we can maintain those things. So we can slow our descent. And if we haven't been doing things at all, or haven't been doing things maybe with a focus towards improving those things, we can see an uptick in those things. Nonagenarians, clients in their ninth decade of life, 90-year-old and up, are in research shown to improve strength with appropriate exercise. So it is possible to see improvement throughout that lifestyle. And I think that that's one of those keys is you don't have to just kind of throw up your hands and go, well, I'm getting older now, I'm going to see that decline. Don't accept it lightly, right? Get assessed appropriately, work on the right things, and at the minimum, slow that descent. Effects of exercise, again, neurologic strength versus physiologic strength is discussed in there. Neurologic strength is when I load my system, when I exercise appropriately, I'm learning how to recruit in a more coordinated fashion. I'm getting better nerve signals. I'm getting more muscle fibers firing. I'm getting better coordination of how the muscle fibers fire. And I haven't changed anything in terms of the size of the muscle yet, but by getting that coordination, I'm stronger. I'm more efficient. And then over time, if I keep telling my brain, hey, my brain keeps seeing, hey, this knucklehead keeps putting on more weight, and they keep challenging me, and they keep breaking me down to small degrees, and I keep repairing it, maybe I should make it bigger and better. That's what building physiologic strength is when we, the knucklehead, keep challenging the system, and the brain kind of goes, hey, this person keeps challenging the system, let's just make it bigger and better so that now when they challenge, I don't have to repair as much. Well, now I've got to step up my challenge to the system again, and it's this constant go forward like that. But that's neurologic strength is the learning component of strength, how to be more efficient. Physiologic strength is changing your body. Obviously, our cardiovascular fitness, our aerobic fitness are big pieces of what we do, and they're huge in our recovery process, as well as in our performance throughout the course of a day. And I always kind of and I always say this at the end, on the cardiovascular, the aerobic fitness end, our brain is about 2% of our body weight. yet our brain takes about 20% of our oxygen intake. So if we look at the energy demands, the energy needs of what the brain and the central nervous system crave, this is why we need to be fit. Make good decisions, move well. If we're not doing those things, the brain is going to let us know right off the bat. It's our first line that's going to show where we're having some issue. This was a topic, and we had some good talk as we went through setting up the book on this. Is training the female golf athlete doesn't have to be that different than training the male golf athlete. The similarities are greater between all of us than the differences are. However, we do have some areas where we need to be aware. Interesting stats. 2019, since 2019, participation by female golfers, 25% up. 41% of all beginners are female. That's a tremendous statistic. The onset of puberty is kind of a great divide point. And this is where things, again, throughout, once we have a menstrual cycle in our female athletes, throughout the menstrual cycle, it used to be thought that, well, maybe there are certain phases in the menstrual cycle where you don't see as much strength gain, you don't see as much ability to have power changes and things like that. That's all been shown very recently to not be a factor. You can train throughout the cycle for strength, for power, for these elements. Where we want to kind of be careful, particularly on the training end of things, is complexity of what's being done, because at certain phases of the cycle, there are the hormones have an effect on the ligamentous stability. And there are some studies that show like non-contact injuries in female soccer players and volleyball players, basketball players, where you have the ACL injuries, non-contact ACL knee injuries, higher at certain times in the menstrual cycle than at other times. And there's some relationship to that. There are a lot of factors that go on, but we want to look at this and say, throughout this cycle, we can train. We just need to be smart in how we train throughout that cycle. More to the point on this is the anatomy driving function. So when we look at a post-pubescent, a mature female and a mature male, you're going to see differences. The trunk difference is one of them. The trunk on a male tends to be broader. Rib cage tends to be broader. Shoulder carry tends to be broader. Tends to be a little longer. There's more mass of muscle able to be carried on the male trunk than the female trunk. The pelvis, the shape of the pelvis is different, and the shape of the pelvis is different because babies are coming, have an outlet on one, and babies don't have an outlet on the other. So it's the pelvis being stacked a little differently affects how my hips angle and where my knees are in that angle. And that's going to affect me biomechanically. And I need to kind of look at those things and say, okay, what do they allow for? Well, that hip and pelvis component allows typically for more mobility in that area. So if I notice that my older male golfers are having a little stiffness in getting through into their positions, that might be a part of it. Is some of it may be anatomic, and that's where we need to know to draw the line. Some of it may be anatomic. Some of it may be things that we can address and change.
So Ken, a quick question. Of course, the menstrual cycle is every 28 days is kind of a hormonal reset that takes a month. Is there a hormonal reset to the male body? And is there some sort of time scale for that?
You know, it's a good question, Guillermo. If you have insight on this as well, from everything that I've seen, the fluctuations are significantly less in terms of over a monthly cycle, so to speak. You have other factors. A lot of the factors that affect it are going to be kind of what we would talk about in a recovery cycle. Quality of sleep, quality of nutrition, things of that nature will have a greater impact on the male hormonal flow than would be over a traditional calendar.
So more of a 24-hour reset based on rest and recovery?
That's a huge part of it. Yeah, and physical activity.
Yeah, and that will affect both the men and the women respectively with the 24-hour component. But yeah, in terms of the reset, that the male hormones are relatively stable throughout the month. They don't really fluctuate. Of course, the one thing that caveat is the aging male, that those levels can fluctuate and they can decrease over time, which is something that you should pay attention to and look into because obviously as you're aging, if your testosterone levels start to drop and you're decreasing libido, decreasing recovery, decreasing strength, increasing fat mass, all of those things can be problematic over time. So then intervention can definitely help that.
All right. We can go to that last one. Yeah. So exercise programming, like Alison said, Dr. Curdt said, this is a book that's more about the why. It's more about thinking through what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Why is what is right for me not necessarily what would be right for Alison or John or for Guillermo? Everybody's got their individual pieces. There are few absolutes, but the principles go across. And that's what I think we really want to address is programs must address the individual needs and goals. And that's, again, we find areas of deficiency, we're going to address those areas of deficiency, but I'm never going to stop addressing the things that they do well. If somebody's got great leg strength and explosiveness, I am going to capitalize on that because that might be their superpower. And I don't want to detract from their superpower while I'm trying to overfocus on something that they struggle with. I want to improve what's being struggled with, but I still want to get that superpower to here's a great use of the English language, the superest it can be. So I'm greedy with my clients, and I want to positively affect those things that they already do well as address the obvious things that they need to improve on. Dynamic warm up versus static stretching. Everybody should be doing a dynamic warm up every time they hit golf balls, before they hit golf balls, whether it's a lesson at the range or whether they're playing. Static stretching has its points after your performance. So after you've practiced, after you've played, that's when you static stretch, but not beforehand because it can actually reduce your performance capacities. Mobility through the age spectrum, like we've talked about, staying as mobile and as vital as you can. How many of us that are out there that are 50 and over notice that getting up off the floor, you don't spring up off the floor like you used to when you were 20, 30 years old. And part of that is how much time do you spend on the floor, right? So I'd encourage people, do those types of things often. Test yourself. How quickly can I get up off the floor 5 times? And put yourself into those scenarios that challenge your mobility. They challenge you to get into positions that you're not as familiar with versus getting up off of the sofa or off of a chair. There's never a substitute for strength. Nobody's ever said I'm too strong. So I would challenge you in your exercise programming, making sure that strength training is a part of it. And this even goes to the junior athlete. And there are ways to do that very, very safely, so long as you're focused on their what their true need is and what their positions, what their techniques are. Recognizing that strength plays in with power. So power is force, or you can say power is that ability to create force, which goes in with strength, times velocity. How fast can you move an object, right? So if I'm training for speed, do I want to be lifting heavy things slowly, or do I want to be moving lighter things fast? And it depends on where in the season am I. I'm going to periodize that differently. When I'm way away from my goal, I want to get as strong as I can. So I'm going to be lifting heavy things and moving slower, knowing that it's going to translate over time to a transition to moving lighter things faster. Recovery, balance and endurance training, all those pieces, recovery. Drink a lot of water, right? Basics. Sleep well. Eat well, which kind of goes into the next part here that Guillermo will talk about. And then take care of yourself up here well, which is going to be where Alison's going to take it. So thank you guys very much.
All right. Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate that background. That again, all these golden nuggets, as I say, can be found in our book, and we definitely expand on those and create some practical applications and case studies that you can look at. But what I want to focus on is the nutrition section of the book. And jokingly, I actually told Alison and Ken that we forgot to put one really important part in the book, that the easiest way to actually have less strokes in your game is just to play less holes, and that's really the easiest way to do it. But joking aside, really hydration and nutrition can really indeed save the number of strokes that you play. And when we really think about it, golf there's a power and strength component to it. Obviously, when you're driving that ball, you need to have power to be able to do that. But it's also a little bit of a marathon in the sense that you're out on that golf course for 4 or 5 plus hours. You need endurance, you need precision, you need cognition for a long period of time. And in order to do that effectively, you really need to focus on how you fuel your body, and this goes with nutrition and hydration. But a lot of people try to focus on a perfect diet, and I really try to focus on a repeatable routine that's predictable, that can actually help you and set you up for success.
Yeah.
So why nutrition matters in golf? So there's a hidden performance limiter when it comes to the golfer. If you're playing 18 holes, well, along the back nine, you're typically going to fade if you don't fuel right. And a lot of this is because of lack of hydration and potentially low glucose levels. And I'm going to show you how those can actually work against you. Research indicates that even mild dehydration, just losing 2% of your body weight, can actually impair your attention and your memory, which is obviously going to impact your ability to focus and your ability to make better decisions when you're out on the golf course. And similarly, blood glucose level can drop 10 to 30% during an 18-hole round when you're not fueling yourself, which again, this is going to impact your power and it's going to impact your ability to think. So what golfers really need is a stable energy over time. This is going to help provide better decisions. It's going to help improve your depth perception. You need proper hydration, and when I say hydration, this is not only water, but it's also the electrolytes that you lose, particularly when you're out in the sun. Typically, if you may see your shirt and you see some salt deposits, well, those are your electrolytes that you're sweating out over time. So hydration and electrolytes can actually protect both your cognition and your coordination. Protein, we can't say enough about protein. Protein is going to be very critical for your recovery, and it's also going to help maintain your strength and maintain your lean muscle mass over the course of the season. And then we often talk about the macronutrients. I'm going to get into those next here shortly. But we can't forget the micronutrients. So you want to make sure that you consume the right micronutrients, and those are rich in your diet. This is going to help improve, again, your resilience, your recovery, and more importantly, your long-term health. We talked about that longevity of the sport. So micronutrients that can definitely help in that capacity. So before I get into the macronutrients, I want to talk about the water and the electrolytes. And what I put here is just some basic practical applications that you can literally put to work, tomorrow, or if you're going to go to the golf course later today. So before your golf round, you want to make that you're checking for cues to make sure that you're properly hydrated. So for example, if you're feeling thirsty, you're already behind the eight ball. You're already dehydrated. So you should avoid being thirsty, because when you're already there, this is your body already telling you, hey, you got to give me some fluids here. Your body weight, if you dropped a lot of body weight over time, you maybe played a golf yesterday, a round of golf yesterday. Yesterday was a hotter day, and then if you didn't rehydrate, you might have dropped 2, 3, 5 pounds of weight, not fat weight. A lot of that, is typically excuse me, water weight that you're losing. Look at your urine color. If it's a bright yellow, you're definitely dehydrated. So just to kind of put things in check, about 500 milliliters of water, which is about 17 ounces, about 2 hours before your golf, is a good starting point. And then you want to maybe drink another 8 ounces about 20 to 30 minutes before you tee off. During the round, you want to try to keep water and or other fluids. It doesn't just have to be water. I think things like a Powerade, Gatorade, or even just dumping some of those electrolytes into your water, whether it be some powder form, can actually help you. So about 4 to 8 ounces about every 15 to 20 minutes is an easy way to do it. And then again, about every 2 to 3 holes, you can want to try to get that fluid in there. Obviously, if it's very hot and humid, that's even more important to add those electrolytes in there, because you're going to be sweating more. And then after you finish your golf game, one ideal thing to do is weigh yourself maybe before you start your golf and then after you finish, because for every pound that you lose, you should replace that with about 16 to 24 ounces of fluid. So that's a good, very methodical way of doing it. In fact, when you're working with world-class athletes, people in the NFL, that's actually one of the common things that they do, particularly when they're coming back into training camps. It's not uncommon for athletes to be weighed before practice, be weighed after practice, and then determine hydration needs based on the amount of weight that they lose. The goal is basically to keep your loss of less than 1% of your body mass during play, because if you're losing more than that, that's going to impact your performance. So now let's talk about those macronutrients. So the macronutrients are the ones that you've probably heard of: your carbs, your protein, and your fats. So let's talk about the purpose of each one of these here and how to fuel them. So the carbs are very important. A lot of people are afraid of carbs. You shouldn't be. Our body works on carbohydrates, and it's essential for you to have them. So your brain runs primarily on glucose. This is going to impact your focus and your decision making. And ideally, we want to focus on whole food carbohydrates. I love fruits. I love oats. I love rice, potatoes, quinoa. And then, of course, all of the other vegetables are great sources. But fruit, oats, rice are really great go-to sources for most golfers. You want to try to avoid random fueling. You actually want to plan it throughout the day. And one of the things that I like to preach is, your peri-workout or peri performance type of fueling. Within, an hour or two before you play, and then while you're playing, and then within an hour or two after you're playing, this is a time to really, really fuel your body, particularly with carbohydrates. Protein is the other macronutrient that's very important. It's ideal to spread it out across the day, typically over 3 to 6 feedings throughout the day. But the goal protein intake is about 3/4 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So I'm just going to make the math easy. If you weigh 100 pounds, that means that you want to be taking in between 75 to 100 grams, and then obviously you can escalate up or down. But whatever your body weight is, multiply it by 0.75 or multiply it by 1, and then that tells you about how many grams of protein you should be shooting for per day. And then you're going to divide that basically by 3 to 6, depending on how many times you eat, to tell you, how many grams you should take in for every meal that you're consuming. Typically, for me, 6 meals can work great, but that seems to be a little cumbersome. 3 is usually not enough. So for me, 4 to 5 meals seems to be kind of the sweet spot for most folks. And then you can spread your protein intake accordingly. Good protein sources are going to be your poultry, your fish, your eggs, Greek yogurt, and then plant combinations also do work as well. So if you're vegan, you can get enough protein. You just typically want to make sure that you get it from different combinations of foods so you can get all of the essential amino acids that's necessary. You want to have a complete protein. The last macronutrient is your fat. And you should, again, don't be afraid of fat either, but don't overconsume it. One of the things that most Americans actually overconsume is both the fat and the carbohydrate, because typically they're mixed together. When people think of carbs, they often think of, maybe donuts, maybe cookies, maybe ice cream. And yes, those have carbs, but those also have a lot of fat in them. And it's that combination that, yes, that's actually what makes them taste great. But it's also very, very calorie dense in that regard. And you're not getting a lot of good micronutrients, which is what we're going to talk about next. So you want to keep most of your fat intake from what we call monounsaturated fatty acids or polyunsaturated fatty acids. That's MUFAs and PUFAs. So where do you get these from? Things like olive oil, other nuts like almonds, avocado, fish. So these are the whole sources, as opposed to some of these other oils that we put into things that are not necessarily the best for you. But you want to keep fat lower actually during your 2 hours pre-round to avoid GI issues, because it actually tends to slow digestion. So around 2 hours before you start your round of golf, you probably want to focus primarily on carbohydrates and protein with a little bit of fat, but keep that on the lower side. Now, the other thing that we want to make sure that we talk about is the micronutrients. So this is your performance insurance. So the easy way to kind of make sure that you're getting your micronutrients, I tell people, is to eat the rainbow. So in other words, choose a lot of different colors in your fruits and your vegetables. So get the green stuff, get the yellow stuff, get the red stuff. So when I think of bell peppers, you have different colors of bell peppers. You have broccoli, you have spinach. You have celery, you have a lot of different things you can choose from. You have apples, you have raspberries, you have blueberries, you have blackberries. So if you think about all of the things that I just mentioned, we kind of created a rainbow in all of those here. So you want to choose from all of these here. And I encourage you to eat 2 to 3 fruits and 3 to 5 veggie servings per day. In fact, one of the tricks that I like to give my clients is instead of telling people what not to eat, I give them authority to give them the things that they can eat. And then by nature, by default, if you focus on eating more protein, more water, and consuming more fruits and vegetables, and you start prioritizing those first, all of a sudden you're probably going to eat less of the other stuff. So I never told you not to eat donuts and not to eat cookies, but I tell you, eat the rainbow first, eat the lean proteins first, drink your water first. And then before you know it, your body's going to be pretty content. And yes, you may dabble into some of these other things, but you're not going to do it into the same content, the same volume that you were going to be eating it before. So prioritize your whole grains, prioritize your lean proteins, prioritize your healthy fats, which I told you where to get them from. Fiber is very important. Your fiber target is about 15 grams for every 1,000 calories that you eat, which means for most people, about 28 to about 40 grams of fiber is typically ideal. And if the diet is consistently low, then you want to consider a multivitamin as a backup. I usually like to use it just as an insurance policy, but again, focus on eating that rainbow. So when you're consuming the right micronutrients, it's going to help prevent energy dips, B vitamins, iron. These are going to be very important in maintaining energy. They're going to help support bone and muscle tissues. So for example, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium all support the muscles. It's going to help improve your healing and your immune system resilience. So this is your vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E. And then it's also going to help prevent cramping and nerve issues. And this is primarily your electrolytes.
Dr. Escalante, where does histamine, what is your recommendation on histamine in terms of the greens, particularly like spinach is high in histamine? Do you think that basically is more relevant to those with allergies, or should we all be mindful of how much histamine intake we have in our vegetables?
Yeah, it's not something that I usually worry about unless you have a medical concern accordingly. So I don't think for the I've never made a recommendation for anybody with histamine with or a concern for histamine consumption. If I've never even had anybody with an allergy that where that's been an issue for them. But if you do, this is now again where now working individually is very important and be able to see some of those. So like one of the things that I like to do with a lot of people when I worked with them was looking at blood work, right? So like some people like to say it's like everybody needs a vitamin D supplement. Well, not necessarily, right? Why don't we get let's get some blood work done and see what you're deficient in. Same thing with iron. So all of these things can actually be a factor. And obviously, if you're allergic to certain things, you might have different food sensitivities. And this is why, working with a professional can actually help you because they can guide you and give you some of these general guidelines and then really customize that nutrition program for the individual.
So in recommending a multiple vitamin, you said you take that kind of as a safety precaution. Is there a multiple vitamin in combination with other vitamins such as D, C, or A that you recommend that the body will absorb the most and you don't just pass through your normal urinary practice?
Well, the nice thing is about the water soluble vitamins typically do pass through your system. So whatever it's going to take, your body's going to utilize whatever it's going to need, and then the rest it's going to go right through your system. The ones you want to be careful with are the fat soluble vitamins, which are A, D, E, and K. And then those your body will not necessarily get rid of. So you don't want to overconsume those. So yeah, absolutely. To your point, this is why a general multivitamin that kind of checks all the boxes is not going to have the fat soluble vitamins in very high quantities. and the risk of you overindulging in some of those is very minimal. But like for example, if you're supplementing with an extra vitamin D, some individuals may actually need that, right? Like if you don't get enough sun, maybe your body's already deficient. People in certain countries are going to be deficient in vitamin D just because of where they are relative to the equator. So those individuals may actually indeed need an extra vitamin D supplementation in addition to that multivitamin, in addition to getting it from your micronutrients accordingly. But you have other people where that's not going to be a factor. So again, you really want to individualize it based on the person because you can overindulge and go too far in some of these, particularly the fat soluble vitamins.
And is there any validity to how hydrated you are in taking vitamins? Meaning, if you're really hydrated and you're flushing with a lot of water, your body's going to get less out of the vitamins you take. And therefore, if you're more dehydrated when you take the multiple vitamins, when you take the vitamins, your body's going to get more out of those vitamins. Is there any validity to that?
No, there really isn't, but obviously you want to try to maintain appropriate hydration throughout that because for other reasons not related to your vitamins, but just for health and for performance and everything else, but not in relation to the vitamin intake.
Thank you.
Good questions. So another practical application that I like to think about is when you're fueling during the game is the every 3 holes game plan. So about every 3 holes, you want to make sure that you're getting some sort of fuel into your system. So one of the things that I like to kind of think about again is working around your nutrition around your golf game. So before the round, about 2 to 3 hours beforehand, you want to have a balanced meal that consists of carbohydrates and lean proteins primarily, and a small amount of fat. So some example are oats and Greek yogurt and berries, eggs and toast and fruit. These are all good sources of protein, carbs, and then a little bit of fat that's in them. During the round, about every 3 holes, you want to sip and bite. So fluids, you want to make sure that you kind of plan a drink trigger, and then you may maybe put a little notepad, something on your notepad, something on your scorecard that reminds you, I need to make sure that I hydrate here. Or maybe you put an alarm on where every 15 to 20 minutes it's telling you, hey, I need to drink a little bit of water or a little bit of Gator or whatever the case may be. And then shoot to have a snack. A snack does not have to be a lot of calories, just a couple hundred calories, maybe 100 calories if you're a smaller person, about every 60 to 90 minutes. And some examples would be just a simple fruit that's typically got about 100 calories, a half a sandwich or granola bar and beef jerky. I like beef jerky because it's portable, it's easy, and it's also got sodium in it, which is nice to be able to do that. And you can do that with some water, and then in the granola you're going to get a lot of the carbohydrates that you need in there. So these are just some good examples. There's a lot of different examples we can take on the golf course. When you finish, you want to focus on, again, rehydrating. And I told you the formula for how much you should rehydrate based on how much weight you lose. But have a normal meal with carbohydrates, protein, and vegetables to recover and then get ready for tomorrow's golf round.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Guillermo. Now we're going to talk a little bit about taking that information and blending it into the psychological skills of golf performance. What we eat impacts these psychological skills. How we train our body and what we feel our strengths and our weaknesses are also impacts our psychological skills. We talk about in sports psychology the big five, and the big five is sort of like in golf instruction, your grip alignment and your posture, like your foundation. So whenever I'm working with a client initially who has no basis on understanding what sports psychology is like, we start with these components: emotional regulation, attention and concentration, goal setting, imagery and mental rehearsals, and then self-talk, which leads into confidence. And those are your foundation, your pillars that you're always wanting to monitor. What is satisfactory, what's helping you, and what's hindering you? And I would say that in the 10 years that I've studied clinical psychology and been licensed, most people really, really suck at regulating their emotions. And they will tend to be dysregulated because of what they've eaten or what they have not eaten. I would say our society in general is having a tough time with attention and concentration. Here we are at the 50-minute mark of this webinar, and I'd probably ask you to check in with yourself. Am I still paying attention? Am I multitasking? Am I getting last-minute presents on Amazon for my family? Our society's ability to attune, concentrate is depleting based on the stimulus that's in our environment. I think a lot of people understand the idea of goal setting, but to use a more scientific approach to it in terms of what's the goal for my practice session today? What's the goal for my nutrition today? What's the goal if I have a session with Ken and I'm working on strength training? And then how does that feed into a 90-day plan and maybe a 365-day plan? Imagery and mental rehearsals is the opportunity to strengthen the neural connectivity in your mind without having to move your body. So if you are injured, if it is 40-mile-an-hour winds outside, like it might be today in Simi Valley, if it's a day outside that doesn't create a conduciveness to practice, practicing in your mind with mental rehearsals actually will burn calories, will start to strengthen the neural connections in your mind, and you can improve your motor responses just through the imagery and mental rehearsals. Our self-talk and our confidence leads into our belief system. How we speak to ourselves, either verbally or mentally, will either make deficits or deposits into our reservoir of confidence. And hitting a shot and being like, oh, that sucked. Think of that as like just sort of a little chip at your confidence. Could there be a different response to how you look at a shot, and can you reframe it to not being positive? I'm not about you have to be positive. You just have to be fact-based. You have to be neutral. And something that I share a lot about in my presentations is the power of a negative comment, the power of a positive comment, and the power of a neutral comment. And you don't have to be happy and joyful about every single shot. You can just be fact-based. The ball hooked left in the water because the face was closed and the path was too far right. That took away all the emotion possible. It was fact-based of what happened rather than I suck. So I share in the book just some Psych 101 information of these components. And as golf coaches on this call, when you're sharing information with your students, I believe that you should have a foundational understanding of these big five of sports psychology so that you can pick up on when somebody is dysregulated emotionally, and then how you can move the lesson towards some other skill that is less frustrating so that you don't have a really irritated or frustrated golfer in front of you who then leaves the lesson after 60 minutes saying, man, that was really tough and I didn't get anything out of it. If you are psychological savvy, you can time the cadence of the lesson so that you have the student's attention and they're really enmeshed and they're really engaged, as opposed to hitting 50 golf balls and doing the same shot over and over. As we're getting towards the end of the year, I do a lot of SWOT analysis with my clients. What went well this year? What are your strengths? Where were some deficits that we could improve upon? Are there any opportunities to make 2026 better? And what are some of the threats to your success? Is it time? Is it busyness? Is it uninterest in practice? And then having these options in your SWOT analysis can really start to give you a better plan for next year, as opposed to just a New Year's resolution, where I think research tells us gyms are super heavily packed in January, and then by February 14th, memberships have literally decreased by like 80%. So doing a SWOT analysis would be a little bit more applicable to getting your students to follow through with making some neurological change and some physical change. Now, I'm not an expert in nutrition by any means, but after talking about nutrition for 2 years with Dr. Guillermo and going through my own particular physique change, just sort of by default, to learn how to eat for running, that then led me into learning how to eat for golf. No one ever taught me that. And then a lot of my students are sharing about how holes 13, 14, 15, they usually play really poorly. And that started to lead me to ask questions about, well, what are you eating on the golf course? And then when I started to do the math of, well, what time did you eat breakfast? Then when did you tee off? Everyone eats at the turn, right? They grab something at the turn. How long does it take for those nutrients to actually hit the bloodstream? And then now the round's over. It gave me a better narrative about how important nutrition is, and then how goal-based eating is a lot more successful for the psychology of a human being than deficit eating. And so let me explain a little bit about that. When I was first going through my journey of needing to know how to fuel my body for long distance running, it was more about Guillermo telling me, eat this, eat this, eat this, not stay away from a cupcake, not don't eat the red velvet cupcake at South Hills at the President's Dinner on Sunday night, which was really good, by the way. Thanks, John, for getting that in there. It was, you can eat those things, but here's the buckets you need to fill. And if you hit these numbers, if you hit these macros, then see what you have left over, and then you can make a wise decision. And it was so challenging to actually feel like I was eating more to hit these goals. And as a goal-based, achievement-oriented mindset, it really worked for me. So now it wasn't like, oh, I can't have Chick-fil-A today. It was, okay, how many macros do I need in my protein? Does this particular meal satisfy anything? How can I weave this in? And I never felt like I was really saying no. I felt like I was empowered to make a choice. And this is what I'm sharing with my clients now is the idea of understanding what your body needs. You need to work with a professional, just like we say, always take a lesson from a PGA professional. If you want to change your diet and your physique, you need to work with professionals. Have some mindful awareness of what you are eating. So watching Netflix and eating your dinner doesn't work well. You need to understand and feel the textures and the flavors and the tastes of what's going into your body to make the eating experience a lot more in depth and satisfying. You can consume 2,500 calories pretty easy watching a football game. But if you had 2,500 calories sitting in front of you at a table while you're actually immersing yourself mindful eating, it'd probably be really hard to do because you would eat slower, you'd be more aware of what's going into your body. So I'm encouraging my golfers to be more mindful and to enjoy the eating experience as opposed to racing through it. And then everything is about a plan. As I mentioned, I'm very goal oriented. So I have a plan. I know exactly what I need to eat within the day. And then I can time it out in between lessons or in between holes. And as Guillermo mentioned, like having it written down, I do it on my scorecard. Every 3 holes, there's a little black line. That's something that's shared in the book as well. Some techniques and strategies. After I see that 3-hole little black line, I know it's time to refuel and rehydrate. So using some journaling will help you be consistent and be able to maintain this moving forward. And so I know our time is becoming a little bit short. So just going into coaching confidence, the ability for you to change your hormones when it comes to testosterone and cortisol within a 2-minute period is empowering. That means that the way that you stand, the way that you present yourself, the way you hold your body can literally change the amount of hormonal levels in your body to feel more confident. So being on the first tee of the section championship and you've just gotten stretched out by Ken on the driving range, you've refueled based on your knowledge and now you're feeling nervous teeing off. The way that you can hold your body with a tall, empowering, sort of a superhuman pose can actually increase your testosterone and decrease your cortisol, which makes you feel more confident. Cortisol is your stress hormone. Testosterone can help you in decision making, make you feel brave, make you feel certain. So understanding how you can use some psychological hacks to change your hormones within 2 to 3 minutes, knowing what to say to yourself at any particular given point so that you're not using too much negative commentary and chipping away at your confidence, but you're using imagery, you're using some coping strategies to handle shots that are offline, to handle shots that don't bring you joy. All of these pieces are going to be helpful in creating your holistic golfer. And as this all blends together in terms of the golf performance code, we need to have an understanding, as Ken will say, from juniors, seniors, and in-betweeners, what our body is going through, what are our nutritional intake needs in order to support that physical endeavor, and then how in that space of juniors, seniors, and in-betweeners, how we need to think, respond, and what are the areas that we need to improve on to play our best golf. So our contact information is listed on the screen here. If you have any questions at all about our particular sections, please feel free to reach out to all of us. Ken and Dr. Guillermo are fantastic follows on Instagram. I'm always learning new food hacks from Guillermo as he travels all over the world about how he's able to maintain his eating in hotels. And then I love watching Ken's stuff because he's always showing some new moves and some great information about how to keep the body strong and mobile. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I hope you enjoy the Golf Performance Code. Grab a copy on Amazon. Makes for a great Christmas present as well. And then please feel free to reach out with any questions.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, we want to thank Dr. Alison Curdt, Dr. Guillermo Escalante, and Ken Mangle for their time in presenting and educating the section this morning. The recording of this morning's webcast will be sent out to all the members that are on this morning's webcast. You will receive 1 PDR credit for attending, and as Doctor alluded to, their contact information will be on that. Feel free to reach out to them. And thank you very much for supporting the Catalyst webinar series. This is our last Catalyst for the year, and we look forward to your support in the educational platform in the 2026 year. Dr. Allison, Dr. Guillermo, Ken, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank
Have a
you all.
wonderful day.